The appeal court tackles interplay between pension valuation and equalization in a recent decision that we got from the Court of Appeal this week, or a couple weeks ago. The court framed its ruling by noting that upcoming legislation and regulatory reforms around the family law, now postponed until 2021 or 2021 due to the impact of the pandemic, to bring clarity to child support, spousal support, and the division of family property. Similarly, it was going to help in the issue of pension law. In 2012, the Ontario government passed legislation to simplify the valuation of pension for purposes of calculating what we call net family property, which is how we share property, by establishing a formula for pensions, and one that was to be applied by pension administrators who calculate the value, instead of being determined through litigation, which involved competing pension valuators offered by retained actuarial experts by the parties. The court indicated thus the courts largely got out of the business of pension valuations to provide both certainty and fairness and to avoid having spouses engage in costly litigation. However, the court went on to lament, however, the valuation of the federally regulated pensions is not certain. Parliament has not reformed the law regarding pension valuations to bring in line with the Ontario legislation. Until it does, Ontario courts must apply, to the extent reasonably possible, the provincial approach to valuing federal pensions for the purposes of sharing property. Each spouse had a pension, in this case, that fell under federal rather than provincial scheme of regulation. They proceeded to trial to resolve the narrow issue. The trial judge began the decision by setting the normal retirement date for each spouse. The judge concluded that the husband intended to retire at age 65 and the wife at age 60. The judge valued their pensions and made the property equalization calculation accordingly. The appeal raised the question to whether and to what extent the detailed provincial pension scheme was to be applied to the assessment for the family law purposes. The appeal court reviewed the interplay between the federal and provincial pension regimes. When imputing the value of the pension for sharing purposes, the Family Law Act required courts to use the approach stipulated by the provincial legislation, with necessary modifications. Even when it is a federal pension that is being considered, the default regime must be used by the court unless one party can show a modification is necessary. The appeal court explained if a pension administrator should to the extent possible value a non-Ontario pension as if it were an Ontario pension. This is consistent with the purpose of the valuation exercise, which is to obtain a fair, predictable, and consistent division of family property. Thus, it is important that provincial and federal pensions be valuated in the same manner to the extent reasonably possible. The trial judge in this case had wrongly customized the pension valuation to the spouse's specific circumstances, including case-specific assessment of each spouse's normal retirement date. This approach was an error. The court of appeal also added some important instructions to be heeded in future cases like this one. It added that the process to be followed when valuating non-Ontario pensions, generally the process should be the same with provincially regulated plan. The parties should request the pension administrator to generate a value based on Ontario law. If the administrator refuses to calculate the pension, the preferable approach is that a single jointly appointed expert provides expert evidence. The appointment of competing valuators should be avoided because it encourages the costly litigation that we see here. And this is the specific point the legislation was trying to avoid. So the court wants you to avoid dueling experts. Use one expert to get your federally regulated pension valued. That's the takeaway here. If you like this podcast, if you like our YouTube video today, please share it with your friends and family. You can subscribe to our videos. You can leave your comment at the bottom. Any questions that you may have, we're going to endeavor to answer all those questions by the end of the week. Thank you for watching today. I'm Russell Alexander.